Alright everybody, welcome to Train Simulator 2014. This is Vdeil, and today we are going to start a playthrough of Train Simulator 2014. Start new Let's Play, and first of all, launch a new Let's Play channel. For today, I think I'm going to just go with a very basic engine here. We'll jump right in, and we'll go through a little bit of roundabout, little bit of orientation to the game. That's the word I'm looking for here. A little bit of an orientation to the game and how it's played and how everything works. Right now we're going to jump on in. We're going to choose a very basic engine, SD40 at the Castle Rock Railroad here. Quick short scenario. Should give us just enough time to kind of browse around the game and see what there is to do. Alright, let's get right into it. Alright. Our first objective is to empty the coal hoppers, ready for transfer from Larkspur Refinery number 5 to Monument Yard number 1. So we're going to go ahead and move on over there, pick them up. As we get going here, 3 basic controls on the deck here. Got your throttle, which is the red lever here. We have the center, which is your reverser. Basically, the gear shift on your car is very similar to it. You press right forward to go forward, and reverse to go in reverse. And in its zero position here, it is neutral. You have your brake lever over here. It has 3 different settings here. The first one in here will control your whole train's worth of brakes here. So every car on your train that is brakes enabled will apply their brakes at the same time when that is active there. The second one only applies the brakes in the first locomotive of a consist, this one here for this one. And finally you have your dynamic brakes, which we'll probably get into on a later episode. I don't believe... Actually, no, there will be an opportunity to use them later on this route. So we will show them off as well. Basically, they're used on downhill climbs when normally applying a brakes would actually melt them. So we're going to go ahead and release the brakes here. We'll start backing up as soon as they are released. A real quick rundown of some of the other buttons here and visuals. You have your brake indicator here, both your vacuum and regular train air brakes. One is the train applied pressure, and one is the train vacuum pressure. And each of those works in conjunction to make sure that the cars can stop on time and can actually get going. This is your gas gauge. Normally don't have to worry about this in Train Simulator. Maybe a requirement in some episodes, but generally you're not going to be paying too much attention to this. Have the 6 symbols here. On locomotives, there used to be more of these, however that's actually a new interface, completely separate from this one, so these 3, as far as I know, have never had any use on diesel locomotives. The first one is your headlights. New to Train Simulator 2012 was the addition of working headlights. They cast shadows, they cast light, and basically added a whole new level of realism to the game. And let me just take a quick look here. I think I may have gone a little bit too far. Let me just check. Nope, I'm right on track here. Just got to change that over. So we are going into the refinery 5th spur. I'll get on to explaining all about the map and the switch pointing mechanics in them. A little bit later, we'll probably have another opportunity for that when we come to the end point of the mission, going towards Monument Slate 1 there, as you saw. This button here controls windshield wipers. Not really a requirement on a nice day like this. Good to know where it is, though. This is your load unload button there. That will cause passengers to board or exit at stations, and it will also cause you to dump or load cargo in cars that are equipped for it. This is your standard. Generally, you press that anytime when you need extra traction there, when starting off a stop on a steep hill or when using brakes on a steep hill, generally in rainy or subpar conditions. And then you have both your bell here and your horn as well. All of these functions and many more can be equipped or done through keys on the keyboard. I especially enjoy doing basically the reverser and power controls using keyboard as well as the horn, as I find it gives me much better control over them. Just pull into the siding here. Want to give the brakes a little pressure. Don't want to get too fast. You'll slam into these and you'll face a derailment, which at the worst case is an embarrassment, and at the worst of it is a total waste of property, so that's not ever good, normally. Generally, for a nice hookup, don't want to be going anything over 4 miles an hour. The lower is alright. Alright. So we have just auto-coupled to the cars there. By default, that comes as a default setting here. You normally don't have to worry about that. If you do come in too fast hitting the cars here, there is the possibility you will have to go down here and connect them. This little icon here brings up your consist editor, I guess you could call it. I believe they have a different name for it. The couple screen, basically. Basically, you just have to connect them by pressing these little couples here. I'm not going to do it here because I believe at this point it would fail the mission if I decoupled them. Basically, this screen allows you to see what kind of cars are in your consist, apply their manual brakes if need be, and their numbers in the consist as well. And its most relevant feature, of course, is the coupling of cars. Got two other icons over here. This first one here brings up your mission briefing. This tells you exactly what steps are in line here. We've coupled the back of these cars here, and we'll have to go to the next line here and couple them up, which I'm going to get on the road doing here real quick. New in Train Simulator 2013, actually, I believe. This screen became a little bit more pleasable to the eyes. It used to be just a single flat screen, had no drawbar at all, and in addition it also added this little sprite here which appears on your objective and lets you know exactly where you are. Very helpful tip or a very helpful thing when you're navigating large yard expanses like the one-off yard for the EMD GP9 locomotives, the Milwaukee yard, with over 40 different rail lines in that one. That's very easy to get confused, and I find this would be a very nice addition. As we pull out here, just checking out this corner here, this is your different camera views, this being head-out views, the little guy leaning out the window there. In this in the SD40s here, a little bit different than most of the cab view or head-out views. Pressing them will bring you out onto the porch of the locomotive. The left-hand head-out view will bring you back to the right side of the porch, facing the driver's cab there. Have a limited range of vision there, but you can generally see what you need to see. I actually find this a little bit better than the normal head-out view, as it helps you couple. Same deal with this one. The right side head-out view allows you to go up to the front porch of the locomotive there. Again, very useful for basically coupling to other cars. So I do like that a little bit more than the standard cab head-out view, which we'll be getting into later. Most locomotives don't do this. They do the standard, basically looking outside of the window cab view. Let me just check where we are here. We are good and clear out of that siding here. Just apply the brakes real quick. The center button here, of course, is your normal cab view, and we'll get into this a little bit later here about all of the basically gadgets. There are only one or two non-functional trains that actually don't have a cab view. So all of them have virtual cab views. All of them can... So you can interact with basically any locomotive that you're in. And that. You can actually drive them with or without this interface here. You can turn this off and it's completely as would be in the real world. This view here toggles between positions when you have extra set there. In cab view you have both your engineers and firemen's views, as well as if you have head out, it will switch between the two head out cameras. And then you have your external cameras. These are fixed cameras fixed to the first and last cars, depending on which one you hit. The first one here always takes you to the leading car, whether that be if you're moving in reverse or forwards, respective to your locomotive there. Since we are heading in reverse, it is showing me the last car on the consist going forward. If I were to press the second one here, it will show me the rear car on the consist, which happens to be our locomotive. This can be a little bit tricky sometimes when you switch. Basically, if you press this again, it's not going to take you up to the front locomotive. You'd have to press the second one, then the first again. I'll show this in just a second here when we switch position. I'll slow down here just a little bit. I don't want to derail the first day. That kind of sucked, wouldn't it? A little too slow now. Have your passenger view here. That's the dead center icon. If we had passenger cars in here, some of them are modeled inside and you can sit in them. We'll get into that a little bit later. There are passenger scenarios for the Castle Rock Railroad, I'm sorry. They do come with them. They can be either really simple views or really nice views as well. Being as far details as to have their own music in them, which we'll get into maybe when we do a horseshoe curve route. Like I said, this can be a little bit finicky here with the buttons. Generally, also, though, you have your keyboard as well, which will actually do this seamlessly. I generally don't use that, though. It's easier just to click these. These buttons here switch your cars in the consist. If you're in cab view, it switches you down to locomotives. If you are stopped, this actually changes the locomotive you're controlling. So if I were stopped, I would actually make my controlling unit the second one in the consist. This is sometimes used in scenarios where a train is double-headed with a locomotive on each side and you're switching the direction of travel. It's a lot more common in English ones, as the DMUs, EMUs, diesel multiple and electrical multiple units, usually have cabs at either end. It's not something that's normally used on a railroad unit in North America. However, there are some cases, like the California Super Sprinters, I believe, or Surf Sprinters, that do use that kind of arrangement, though a little bit differently than English provinces do. This is your couple cam. It's a top-down, basically. It focuses on the locomotive's couple. You switch through using these. I generally don't find myself using these a lot. Our uses for it, of course, like every camera view here, but I don't find myself using it a lot, as typically I don't find a need for it. You have the bird's eye view here, which gives you a look top-down onto your locomotive there. It's affixed, I believe, to a north-south posture. I typically don't find myself in this very often either. This one here is free camera there. Allows you to move around with the arrow keys. Basically in free space. Your right mouse button also controls the camera in this game. Basically clicking it and dragging it will cause the camera to move around there. And I almost botched that one. A lot of the routes, a lot of newer routes these days, a lot of the signaling is done automatically for you, so it's kind of easy to get kind of lackadaisical about your switching. In my case, I just about forgot that I was going into the shed here, and that obviously would have been bad. Locomotives, for all their power and their worth, not so much good on just land without rails. So we'll just back up here real quick. Good thing I'm not being graded on this. There is one final camera mode I have yet to show you guys. We'll wait until we're underway. It's the cinematic approach camera, so it does pay to have the train going a little bit before you do that. This button over here, like I said, was your briefing screen. You basically toggle that on and off. In Train Simulator 2013, the update then did... Let's see, real quick. Don't want that to happen again. Alright. We should be good. Alright. These buttons were added in Train Simulator 2013, and actually I could have just pressed this to flip the switch here. The icons themselves give you a couple options. Call ahead and call back. These will probably get into later scenarios when there's more traffic on the line. It's a very basic scenario that I'm playing today, just to kind of get us familiar with the workings of the simulator here. These two here will allow you to trade the switch positions. There's a switch in front of you. You press this one and it'll flip its position. And likewise for this one, but in the reverse of the train. This one here is the load-unload button here. Basically does the same thing as the button here. I don't find a lot of use out of that one because generally it's just a secondary button. So you may have noticed there, I had a little pop-up, said it was speeding here. That is a brand new thing from Train Simulator 2014, I believe. This little patch here was reworked a little for the release, but basically it stayed the same. This here shows your current time in the simulation, what time of day it is here. This is your objective. You have to go through Larkspur through 2. This would be our time limit when we're due, but typically during standard scenarios, this isn't something you have to worry about. More so during the career scenarios, which you are graded on. This is your distance to the objective there. That just shows you how long you have to go. And this is how much time it's expected to take. That's your ETA for meeting that goal. This is the part that was changed, I believe newly. Actually, I can't quite remember if it was 2013 that added both the speeding icon and the indicator here. It could have been 13, could have been 14. My memory is just a little bit fuzzy of the differences between the two. This is basically your comfort indicator. If you accelerate too fast, it'll cause the dot to go down. If you brake too fast, it'll cause the dot to come forward. And if you take a turn too heavy, then the dot will shift to either side. The idea is that the dot reaches any of these four corners, or four sides here, or four corners, I suppose. Then the comfort is subpar, and basically it deteriorates from the ride value. You can break stuff, and passengers generally get angry about that. So in career scenarios, you do lose points for this, among a ton of other things. So that is kind of your handy driver's guide there. In addition, we have one more screen down here, and then we'll get up to this. Very simple, 3-second. This is basically your... it's a mini-map of sorts. It allows you to see the cars in your consists. That red icon is the locomotive, and it does scale up when you go faster, so you can see farther down the line. This represents the route line that you're on, up to a set distance, depending on how fast you're going. This number here is the grade, how much the route is pitched. At this point, it's about 1.5, 1.6 here. Typically, anything over 0.5% is going to be a little bit, is going to make the locomotive definitely feel it. Unlike your car, which, well, like your car and unlike your car, which can take a little bit of a slope, but not too much. Generally, locomotives are more so pressured by that. They don't respond well to slopes, and so the highest I believe I've ever seen is a 3.5% slope, which is very, very tough for a locomotive to conquer. It generally does not react well to it, so it's only for a couple hundred feet usually when I see something like that. This here is going to be a speed indicator. It lets you know that the speed is either going up or it's going to reduce in this many tenths of a mile. Once again, the speeding icon there. Getting just a little ahead of myself. And this here is a signal indicator. You do have to watch out for signals in the game. Generally, for the most part, the signals are very much similar to driving your car. Not much of a difference in there. Green still means go, or the line is free. Yellow still means caution, and red still means you better be stopping. So there is that, and not much of a difference there. Below them there. But we'll come across this first signal here real quick. And we can just kind of go over it. Alright. So as we can see here, I'd say it was besides us to begin stopping in preparation for the signal. However, we have the green light, so we are all set to go. One quirk about signaling is there can be more than one signal on a post there. It can be as many signals as there takes to be. And we'll get into some of the interesting quirks and how to read them when we come across one. Typically, we're going to come across that in a more difficult area, like a switching area, which I do believe there is at least one on the way there. So finally, we get ourselves to this. If you've been watching it for the last couple minutes, typically it's typical speedometer, actually. This is how fast you're going, how fast you're rated for, 50 miles an hour here. We're slightly below it. We'll probably take down the power here in just a second. This is your engine RPM here, and number of amps you're throwing out. Amps can be used as a measure of how fast that you are going here. Amps is the force that is being pushed onto the traction motors, basically the things that make the wheels go on the train, for those unfamiliar with the term. Anytime that you are going up in speed, typically amps are going to decrease. As you can see, it fell from 222 to 219 right now. And it typically does so faster than the speed goes up. So that can be a measure of speed itself, if you're ever wondering. And especially on trains where they use high amps in order to get results there, typically they're going to respond to that a lot more. Actually, looks like cut all power here. Conversely, if your amps are going up, then typically you are slowing down. Basically, amps equates to amount of power that you can put down on the rails. Generally, you get less powerful as you go faster. Generally, you are more powerful as you start out. You have more of that power to push. There are some exceptions to that, and there are actually locomotives whose power will actually transite, as I call it. Actually, some locomotives can basically act as a transmission and becomes more powerful as it switches this gear and can produce more amps at a higher speed. Not too many of them that I know about, only a handful, most of them English locomotives, which we might cover in we will cover in a later episode. So stick around for them. I'll make special note of them. One I have in particular, one of my favorite locomotives, the British Rail Deltic. Very nice locomotive, is at least one of them. And I believe I found that one of the SD series, one of the more recent ones that were released, I believe the SD45P was actually one that I found was a transiting amperage too. As I go along here, boosting up a little again here, lost some speed. Can talk a little bit about the locomotive. The EMD SD40 began production in 1966. For General Motors Electromotive Division, GE EMD. The specific type that we're playing right now is called the SD40-2, which is an improvement on it. It basically went from the old solid circuits to the new modular electric control systems that they began using in locomotives, first test-bedded on what it was called the DDA-40X, test locomotive for Union Pacific. Hey, we got another locomotive coming on down here. There's a caboose. Don't see too many of them anymore. The SD40 itself, I believe, sold just under 13,000 units in its run from 1966 to 1972, at which point it was taken over by the SD40-2, began just making them with the better electronics productions, which continued for a very long time. These units were in production for an extremely long time by locomotive standards, from 1972 to 1989, over 4,000, or about 4,000 rather, of the SD40-2s were produced. So over the span here, we're talking 23 years of production and about 5,500 produced. So they are in no way not plentiful. That's why you see them as common models, typically for small line railroads that basically use them for their needs. They're not the fastest thing, I believe. Top speed for these, even non-weighted, was about 70 miles an hour. Didn't generally go behind that, actually, I believe. Huh. The newer ones, I know it's posted up on the headboards here. Do not exceed 70 miles an hour, some stupid stuff like that. SD40, basically powered by EMD engine. All EMDs are typically provided power by their own engines there. This one carried a EMD 16-cylinder 645 series E3 model. Basically jargon for an engine that had 16 cylinders. Each cylinder, I believe, had 645 cubic centimeters of displacement, which is insanely high compared to my Honda. And that it was of an E3 model. I'm not entirely sure how to equate that into any production or anything. I do know that it was a turbocharged engine. It wasn't roots blown. EMDs, of course, always have to be, until recently, always had to be roots blown or turbocharged. They could not be naturally aspirated, as they were two-cycle engines compared to GE's engine lines, which are typically four-cylinder engines and could be naturally aspirated, though they were usually, I believe, power aspirated as well with roots blower or turbocharger. Of the varieties of them, the SD38 and the SD45 actually were branched off of here. One with 2,000 horsepower, the 38, came with a still 16-cylinder engine, but it was actually not turbocharged. The 45, however, was a turbocharged engine of 20-cylinder variety and produced 3,600 horsepower. All of them typically sold pretty well. The 45 did have teething problems when it first came out, but its service was typically better than the SD40. One problem people did cite about it, and we might get into this a little bit more when we put an SD45, is that they were worried it used more fuel, which was true when it was idling, which was standard practice back then to avoid them from getting cold, but they were much more fuel efficient when on the grade. Have a two-part signal here. It should be just a short hike down the hill here, and we'll get into Monument, and we'll be decoupling in the yard there. The Castle Rock Railroad, the route we are playing here, is a fictional route. One of a couple fictional routes. Most routes here in Train Simulator are actually based on real routes. There are a couple, though. The Castle Rock Railroad, and I believe there is an airport rail link that was proposed but never built, that is also in the simulator. That never made it past the planning stages. There's a couple experimental locomotives that have been put into the simulator. I believe Hitachi was looking into making a high-speed train that was put into the simulator in 2012, which included the big light updates for the locomotives there. Have another signal here. Let me take a look. Okay, so this is our first deviation. We have a signal with now I can get into dynamic brakes a little here. Dynamic control right over here. Dynamic brakes aren't instant in most locomotives, and some they are, and some they were, and they have changed. Dynamic brakes take power off the rails. They basically reverse the traction motors and start taking away power rather than putting it out. And it allows you to absorb power and basically slow down the train. However, dynamic brakes typically aren't that useful for braking in a sense. They are good for pretty much just managing your speed. Typically not going to want to use them to slow down, but to keep your speed at a set amount. Some locomotives, the dynamic brakes are really good. I do like the SD40s for it is a free lock. It's not notched like the power throttle is. In US locomotives, the power throttles are notched so that they have typically 9 positions, including throttle off, so that basically they can't be quick throttled. You can't put it instantly up to 100%. And that results in decreased fuel economy and can hurt the engine bad. Just juggling it up like that. The dynamic brakes, however, on the SD40 are not notched, so they are exact controls, so you can find that niche where it sits exactly. And for this, I like to use the keys on the keyboard, which are the left and right facing arrows here. The period and the comma keys will allow you to control that by default. The comma key taking the power down to the dynamic brakes, and the period key bringing it up. Now, we did have to stop there. One thing we can do is try to request passage. You do that by hitting tab on your keyboard. Alternatively, if it's available, do it through the call forward or call back. Again, these are very similar to the switch changing buttons here. Do click this one to see if you can call ahead to the next signal and get passage, or to the one behind you if you're going in reverse. It seems, though, that the signal has changed, that we can go through here. The switch operator is not responding to my tab key, nor is this option here. So we should be fine to proceed. I do have to slow down in here. So we're coming up to the final area. Now, I mentioned amps earlier, and typically with amps, the opposite is going to be true for your dynamic brakes. The more amps that you're absorbing, the slower you're going to go, and typically the less you're absorbing, the less grab you're getting on your brakes for that. Dynamic brakes are good because they do avoid using your normal brakes. If you were to apply your brakes in reality on a hill like that, you could actually liquefy them before you made the bottom, and basically saves wear and tear on the brakes. Some negatives about it. Like I said, especially in Train Simulator, I don't like them, the ones that are notched, and we will get into a couple of them. I believe the SD70s, the ES44Cs are all notched, so eventually we are going to get into them. We're just going to come into the yard here. We'll be dropping off on up here. Oh. Actually went over the line here. I think we're one siding short, or one siding long, actually. Do have to apologize, just getting off on my first Let's Play here, so expect a little bit of subpar gameplay, as I would say, for a little while here anyway, till I get used to the format here. Basically just gotta back up here and alright. Like I said, we can use that button to switch the switches in front of us, and we should be good this time. Now there are a couple buttons here I didn't really go over here. I'll just breeze over them very lightly here. Some of them will pertain to situations like now, other ones maybe not till later. This one here is typically going to be your train warning system. In English and German routes, you're going to have these active. Basically train warning systems so that basically protect you from going over red signals. American routes typically do not have this. There are just a set few of them that do. This button here is your emergency brake. Pressing it will immediately put your train brake to 100%, so it'll pretty much apply very quickly. Actually, I can do it right here. It'll also zero your reverser, and it will take off any engine power that you were applying at the time as well. Emergency brake is a setting on your brake in pretty much any locomotive. It is 100% there. Gonna want to watch this if you're doing any career scenarios, though, as it does take away points for any time that you spend in emergency. But then again, you don't have to worry about, hopefully not worry about smacking into some poor sub. Alright. We've disconnected the cars there. You saw I just clicked on the connector and it actually drops the cars there. So you can move away here. I believe this button here automatically does it. I don't really have much faith in it though. I've never tried it, so maybe I'm just stubborn. But in any case, get up and moving here. Moving through the map here, basically you have a couple things that'll pop out on you. These are points along the route, these orange ones. Your route is dictated in the blue line there. Sidings are dictated in yellow, and these dots here are going to be your points that you can switch. Right here, we're going to switch back to there, which allows us to go through that. Typically, you always want to switch a switch, even if you're going against it, because there are positions in which you can derail from that. So that goes all the way back up, because our low destination is this one right here. We'll switch that there, switch that there, switch that there. Someone left them open. And then we'll go back here, and then we'll come forward again. Additionally, signals are also shown in this view as well. It is kind of hard to distinguish which direction it's going in. Typically, again, with US routes, ones on the right side are going to be for the northbound, basically as it would be as you're driving, and these ones are going to be for your southbound in this case. A little later they do introduce signals which do kind of alleviate the problem. They have lines on them which allows you to see the orientation of the signal. routes like ones through London definitely benefit from this. Back up there real quick. Doesn't take a lot to get them moving, especially when there's no cars attached to them. So before we end this off, just wanted to say, if you're still watching this, I do thank you. This is just a new thing that I'm kind of starting. I've just kind of gotten into Let's Plays here. I've got my gaming set here. I got a recorder set up here that I'm hoping will work pretty well. I want to go through this. Right now, I'm going out of town. 8 weeks still remaining on that. I'll be gone Sunday night through Friday morning here, which unfortunately predilects any ability that I have for recording an episode. So for now, this is just going to be a weekend thing. I might post a video. Of course, the videos are going to be probably about an hour's worth long, actually, because the scenarios in Train Simulator are, of course, pretty expansive. I mean, even with some of them being over 390 minutes, depending on how fast you can complete them. Probably going to be multi-episode specials, eventually when we get to that point. That might be a special holiday release, I'm thinking. Maybe. But, we'll stop here. Don't want to go too far. That should be the only switch we have to do, so we'll pull forward. Additionally, on the min-map here, it does show ends of the line here with that small bumper little thing. It does show fuel, and this symbol is also reused for loading, say, coal and stuff like that. That's also the symbol for that, basically a loading area. And then the sightings and objectives are also shown on here as well. So it gives you an idea of the scale and how far you have to go. Alright. We're going to pull in here real quick. Just again, like to say thank you for watching this far. I'd like to hear from you guys, any of you guys watching. Request a route, request an engine, and I'll play around with it here. If you have any suggestions as far as where to go, or maybe a Let's Play that I can get onto. Real difficult for me to try and pick one here, but Train Simulator is something I've done for quite a while here. Oh boy. Well, that's an episode. Ah, boy. That's what happens when you smack into one of them things. Stop. Wouldn't do it too fast, though. But, yeah, if you want to drop me a post on this video, just let me know. With the empty hoppers cleared, we have new room for deliveries, and we've successfully completed the scenario. So, once again, this is Vdeil, checking out here. Give me a like, a subscription. If you want to leave a comment to suggest a locomotive, a route, or another Let's Play, let me know. I'd like to get on board with this, and if you have any suggestions, leave them as well. And that's pretty much it. Alright. Well, we will see you later. Don't really know what we're next scenario. Maybe something special, maybe something a little the same. Maybe this one. I don't know. We'll find out then. Until then, this is Vdeil, and you guys have a good night.